Question 1. A manufacturing firm, Veridian Dynamics, known for its commitment to environmental stewardship, has decided to self-declare an improvement in the recyclability of its flagship consumer electronics product line, Aura. They have established a goal to increase the product's end-of-life recyclability rate by 15% within the next 3 years. Support this claim under the principles of ISO 14021, 1999. What is the most critical prerequisite for Veridian Dynamics to establish and communicate regarding this target? Option A. A detailed, scientifically validated baseline assessment of the current recyclability rate, establishing a clear starting point for measuring the 15% improvement. Option B. An independent audit of the company's entire supply chain to identify all potential environmental impacts, regardless of their direct relation to product recyclability. Option C. A comparative analysis of the recyclability rates of key competitors in the consumer electronics market to benchmark Veridian Dynamics' stated goal. Option D. A comprehensive marketing campaign highlighting the 15% recyclability improvement target to maximize consumer awareness and brand perception. The correct answer is A. A detailed, scientifically validated baseline assessment of the current recyclability rate, establishing a clear starting point for measuring the 15% improvement. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, concerning self-declared environmental claims, Type Roman II environmental labeling, emphasizes that any environmental improvement target set by an organization must be based on a genuine, verifiable commitment to achieving measurable progress. This standard requires that such claims are substantiated and do not mislead consumers. When an organization declares a target for improvement, such as reducing its product's life cycle energy consumption by a specific percentage over a defined period, the foundation for this target must be a robust baseline assessment. This baseline serves as the reference point against which future performance is measured. The target itself must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. SMART. Furthermore, the methodology used to establish the baseline and to track progress towards the target must be transparent and scientifically sound. The organization must be able to demonstrate how the target was derived, the data used for the baseline, and the processes in place to monitor and report on the progress. This ensures that the self-declared improvement is not merely aspirational, but a concrete objective supported by a systematic approach to environmental management. The underlying principle is to prevent vague or unsubstantiated environmental claims, thereby fostering consumer trust and promoting genuine environmental performance enhancements. The standard does not mandate specific improvement percentages or methodologies, but rather the rigor and transparency of the process by which targets are set and pursued. The credibility of the self-declared claim hinges on the demonstrable commitment to a well-defined, data-driven improvement objective. Question 2. A manufacturer of outdoor furniture is developing a new line and intends to label their chairs with the claim, constructed from reclaimed ocean plastic. According to ISO 14021, 1999, what is the primary requirement for substantiating this specific material composition, claimed to ensure it is not misleading and adheres to the principles of Type Roman II environmental labeling? Option A. Obtaining a certification from an independent environmental organization that broadly endorses the company's commitment to sustainability without specific verification of the ocean plastic source. Option B. Presenting a qualitative assessment from their internal research team indicating that the plastic used is likely to have originated from marine debris based on visual inspection of the raw material. Option C. Publishing a general statement on the company website about their efforts to use recycled materials, without detailing the specific source or percentage of ocean plastic used in the chairs. Option D. Providing verifiable documentation that clearly traces the origin and processing of the plastic, confirming it was indeed collected from oceanic environments and incorporated into the furniture's construction at a defined proportion. The correct answer is D. Providing verifiable documentation that clearly traces the origin and processing of the plastic, confirming it was indeed collected from oceanic environments and incorporated into the furniture's construction at a defined proportion. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, under its provisions for self-declared environmental claims, Type II labeling mandates that any claims made about a product's environmental attributes must be substantiated and verifiable. When a manufacturer makes a claim regarding material composition, such as stating a product is made with 75% recycled content, this claim must be supported by objective evidence. This evidence typically involves documentation tracing the origin of the materials, processing records, and potentially third-party verification. The standard emphasizes that such claims should not mislead consumers about the environmental performance of the product. For instance, if a product is claimed to be biodegradable, but only under specific industrial composting conditions not readily available to the average consumer, the claim must be qualified to avoid deception. Similarly, a claim about recycled content must accurately reflect the proportion of recycled material in the final product, considering all components and packaging, and this proportion must be verifiable through supply chain documentation and manufacturing processes. The standard is designed to prevent vague or unsubstantiated environmental marketing, ensuring that consumers can trust the information provided on product labels. The core principle is transparency and accuracy in communicating environmental benefits. Question 3. A manufacturer of artisanal ceramics is developing a new line of biodegradable plant pots. They are considering making a self-declared environmental claim on the packaging. The production process involves sourcing clay from a local quarry, using a kiln powered by renewable energy, and incorporating a small percentage of recycled glass for decorative flecks. The pots are designed to decompose naturally in soil after their intended use. When evaluating potential claims under ISO 14021-1999, which of the following best categorizes the reduction in packaging materials used for shipping these pots, if the manufacturer switches to a lighter, more compact design that uses less cardboard? Option A, resource use. Option B, environmental stewardship. Option C, product lifecycle impact. Option D, waste generation. Correct answer is D, waste generation. Explanation. ISO 14021-1999 defines resource use as the consumption of raw materials, energy, and water throughout the life cycle of a product or service. This encompasses not only the direct inputs, but also the resources consumed in manufacturing, transportation, use, and disposal. For example, the energy used to power a manufacturing plant, the water used in a dyeing process, or the virgin materials incorporated into a product all fall under resource use. Waste generation is defined as any material that is discarded or intended to be discarded. This includes byproducts of manufacturing, packaging materials, end-of-life products, and any substances released into the environment that are considered waste. The standard emphasizes that claims about resource use and waste generation must be substantiated and not misleading. A claim focusing on reducing the amount of packaging material used in a product's life cycle, for instance, would be considered a claim related to waste generation, as it directly addresses the material that would otherwise be discarded. Conversely, a claim about using recycled content would relate to resource use, specifically the reduction of virgin resource consumption. Understanding these definitions is crucial for accurately interpreting and making environmental claims under the Type II labeling framework, ensuring transparency and preventing greenwashing. The distinction is important because a claim about reducing waste might be achieved by increasing resource efficiency in production, but the primary focus of the claim is the reduction of discarded material. Question 4. A manufacturer of a new line of home appliances is developing environmental labels for their products. For a refrigerator model, they wish to claim it is superior in energy consumption compared to similar models on the market. Considering the principles outlined in ISO 14021-1999 for Type II environmental labeling, what is the primary requirement for substantiating this specific energy-related claim in the absence of a universally adopted product-specific energy efficiency certification scheme for refrigerators? Option A. The manufacturer should obtain a voluntary third-party endorsement for energy efficiency from a non-governmental organization, even if that organization's methodology is not widely recognized. Option B. The manufacturer must provide readily accessible data that objectively quantifies the energy consumption difference and clearly defines the similar models used for comparison. Option C. The claim is permissible as long as it is presented as a subjective opinion and does not include any quantitative data, thereby avoiding potential misinterpretation. Option D. The claim must be supported by a detailed life cycle assessment report that demonstrates overall environmental superiority, even if the energy comparison is not explicitly benchmarked. The correct answer is D. The claim must be supported by a detailed life cycle assessment report that demonstrates overall environmental superiority, even if the energy comparison is not explicitly benchmarked. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999 addresses self-declared environmental claims, also known as Type Roman II environmental labeling. For claims related to energy efficiency, the standard emphasizes that such claims must be based on verifiable data and be relevant to the product's life cycle. Specifically, claims must not be misleading and should be substantiated. If a claim refers to a specific attribute like energy efficiency, it must be supported by objective criteria that are readily available to the consumer. The standard does not mandate a specific numerical threshold for energy efficiency in the absence of a relevant national or international standard. Instead, it requires that any comparison or statement of superiority be factually accurate and based on comparable data. For instance, a claim like more energy efficient would require a clear benchmark for comparison, typically established by a recognized energy rating system or a defined product category average. The absence of a specific energy efficiency standard for a particular product category means that a self-declared claim must still be accurate and not create a false impression of environmental benefit. The core principle is transparency and verifiability of the claim itself, irrespective of whether a formal certification scheme exists. Question 5. A multinational corporation manufactures its eco-friendly cleaning solution in a facility located in Brazil. The product is then exported and exclusively sold within the European Union, according to the principles outlined in ISO 14021, 1999, for Type Roman II environmental labeling, which geographical area dictates the primary scope of applicability for the self-declared environmental claims made on the product's packaging. Option A, the country of incorporation of the parent company. Option B, the origin country of the raw materials used in production. Option C, the geographical location of the manufacturing facility. Option D, the geographical region where the product is marketed and sold. The correct answer is D, the geographical region where the product is marketed and sold. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically addressing Type Roman II environmental claims, focuses on self-declared declarations. The standard's applicability is not inherently tied to the geographical origin of the product or the manufacturing location. Instead, its primary concern is the market where the environmental claim is made. If a company manufactures a product in one country but markets and sells it in another, the environmental claims made on that product must conform to the requirements of ISO 14021, 1999, if that country recognizes or adopts the standard, or if the company voluntarily chooses to adhere to it for consistency and credibility in its target markets. The standard is designed to provide a framework for clear, accurate, and verifiable environmental claims made by manufacturers, often through their own labeling or declarations, regardless of where the production process takes place. Therefore, the geographical scope of application is determined by the place of marketing and sale, not the place of manufacture. For instance, a product made in country and sold in country B must comply with ISO 14021, 1999, if country B has regulations referencing it, or if the company aims to align with international best practices for environmental claims in that market. Question 6. A manufacturer of a new line of portable power banks intends to self-declare an environmental benefit related to their product's energy efficiency. Considering the principles outlined in ISO 14021, 1999, for Type Roman II environmental labeling, which of the following approaches for selecting an environmental indicator would best align with the standard's requirements for accuracy, verifiability, and meaningfulness to the consumer? Option A, declaring eco-friendly power and featuring imagery of nature without any specific data or measurable environmental attribute being identified or quantified. Option B, asserting longer battery life, which is a performance characteristic, and linking it to an unquantified environmental benefit without specifying how battery longevity translates to a direct environmental improvement or providing a comparative metric. Option C, claiming improved energy conservation and providing a general statement about the product's design without specific quantifiable data or a defined benchmark. Option D, stating 5% more efficient charging than the previous model and supporting this with internal testing data that compares the new model's energy input versus stored energy output against the previous model under identical laboratory conditions. Correct answer is C, claiming improved energy conservation and providing a general statement about the product's design without specific quantifiable data or a defined benchmark. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically addressing Type Roman II environmental self-declarations, mandates that environmental claims be accurate, verifiable, and not misleading. When selecting environmental indicators for a self-declared claim, a manufacturer must ensure that the chosen indicators are relevant to the product's life cycle and the specific environmental attribute being highlighted. The standard emphasizes that claims should be based on quantifiable data and that the methodology for measuring these indicators should be sound and, where possible, aligned with recognized standards or protocols. The intent is to provide consumers with meaningful information that allows for informed purchasing decisions regarding environmental performance. A claim about reduced water consumption during use for a washing machine, for instance, would require a quantifiable metric like liters per wash cycle, measured under standardized testing conditions, and this metric must be demonstrably better than a relevant benchmark or previous model. The chosen indicator must directly support the stated claim and be understandable to the target audience. It is crucial that the claim does not overstate the environmental benefit or imply a broader environmental superiority than is actually achieved. The principle is to focus on specific, verifiable environmental aspects rather than vague or unsubstantiated general environmental friendliness. Question 7. Consider a manufacturer of reusable water bottles that highlights its use of 100% BPA-free materials on its product packaging, a claim verifiable through material testing. However, the energy expenditure and greenhouse gas emissions associated with the specialized molding process required for these bottles are significantly higher than those for standard plastic bottles. According to the principles outlined in ISO 14021, 1999, which of the following best describes a potential limitation or concern with this self-declared environmental claim? Option A. The claim is inherently invalid because ISO 14021, 1999 mandates that all environmental claims must encompass the entire product life cycle, including disposal. Option B. The claim is only permissible if the manufacturer also provides a full life cycle assessment, LCA, on the packaging, which is a mandatory requirement for all Type Roman II claims. Option C. The claim may be considered misleading if it distracts from or fails to acknowledge other significant adverse environmental impacts associated with the product's life cycle, such as higher energy consumption during manufacturing. Option D. The claim is acceptable as long as the BPA-free aspect can be scientifically verified, irrespective of any other environmental considerations. The correct answer is C. The claim may be considered misleading if it distracts from or fails to acknowledge other significant adverse environmental impacts associated with the product's life cycle, such as higher energy consumption during manufacturing. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, concerning Type Roman II environmental labels and declarations, emphasizes that self-declared claims must be accurate, verifiable, and not misleading. A significant limitation arises when a claim is based on a single attribute without considering the overall life cycle impact of the product or service. For instance, a product might be advertised as made with recycled content, which is a valid claim under the standard if substantiated. However, if the manufacturing process for that product is highly energy-intensive or generates significant pollution, the single attribute claim, while technically true, could mislead consumers about the product's overall environmental performance. The standard implicitly requires that claims do not overstate environmental benefits or obscure other significant environmental impacts. The European Union's Unfair Commercial Practices Directive, for example, complements such standards by prohibiting misleading environmental claims. Therefore, a claim that highlights a positive aspect while ignoring a substantial negative one, even if the positive aspect is verifiable, can be considered misleading under the spirit and intent of ISO 14021 and related consumer protection legislation. The core principle is transparency and the avoidance of greenwashing, where a partial truth is used to create a favorable but incomplete environmental impression. Question 8. When evaluating an environmental claim under ISO 14021-1999, a company advertises its courier service as delivering your packages with a significantly reduced carbon footprint. Based on the standard's definitions, what is the primary classification of this environmental claim? Option A. A product claim specifically related to the packaging materials used by the courier. Option B. A claim concerning the recyclability of the delivery vehicles themselves. Option C. A claim pertaining to the environmental characteristics of a service, encompassing its operational processes. Option D. A process claim limited to the energy consumption of the company's administrative offices. The correct answer is C. A claim pertaining to the environmental characteristics of a service, encompassing its operational processes. Explanation. ISO 14021-1999 defines a product in the context of environmental labeling as any good or service that can be offered to a market to satisfy a want or need. This definition is crucial for understanding the scope of environmental claims. Service is explicitly included, meaning that environmental claims made about services, such as energy efficiency improvements for a building's HVAC system or waste reduction initiatives for a consulting firm, fall under the purview of this standard. The standard differentiates between product and process claims. A product claim relates to the environmental characteristics of the product itself, such as its recyclability or reduced packaging. A process claim, on the other hand, relates to the environmental characteristics of the production process or the company's operations. For example, a claim about using renewable energy in manufacturing is a process claim. ISO 14021 focuses on self-declared claims, meaning they are made by the manufacturer, distributor, retailer, or importer without independent third-party verification, although the standard does provide guidance on ensuring the accuracy and truthfulness of these claims. The standard's intent is to prevent misleading environmental claims and to provide consumers with reliable information. Therefore, when considering claims, it is essential to understand what constitutes the product being evaluated for its environmental attributes, and whether the claim pertains to the product itself or its manufacturing or service delivery process. Question 9. Considering the principles of ISO 14021-1999 regarding self-declared environmental claims, which of the following scenarios best exemplifies a claim that aligns with the standard's intent for product and service coverage, assuming all claims are factually accurate and verifiable? Option A. A beverage manufacturer labels its bottled water as pure and natural, implying environmental superiority without any specific environmental attribute or claim being made. Option B. A software company promotes its new application as green technology simply because it runs on electricity, without specifying energy efficiency metrics or the source of that electricity. Option C. A hotel chain advertises its eco-conscious operations, highlighting its use of biodegradable cleaning supplies and a commitment to reducing single-use plastics across all its properties. Option D. A fashion brand declares its clothing line as sustainable fashion, based solely on a vague internal policy of considering environmental factors in design, without providing specific data on materials or manufacturing processes. The correct answer is C. A hotel chain advertises its eco-conscious operations, highlighting its use of biodegradable cleaning supplies and a commitment to reducing single-use plastics across all its properties. Explanation. ISO 14021-1999, a standard for self-declared environmental claims, Type Roman II environmental labeling, specifies that claims should be based on verifiable data and should not be misleading. The standard outlines principles for making environmental claims about products and services, ensuring they are accurate, substantiated, and relevant to consumers. It does not mandate specific types of products or services that must be covered, but rather provides a framework for how any environmental claim should be made. The standard scope is broad, encompassing any product or service for which an environmental claim is made by the manufacturer, distributor, or retailer. This includes claims related to materials, energy, water, waste, emissions, and other environmental aspects throughout the product or service lifecycle. The standard emphasizes that the claims should be specific, truthful, and avoid vague or general statements that could deceive consumers. For instance, a claim like environmentally friendly, without further substantiation, would not meet the requirements of ISO 14021. Instead, a claim such as made with 50% recycled content or consumes 20% less energy than Model X would be more appropriate, provided it is verifiable. The standard's applicability is not limited to physical goods. It extends to services as well, such as ecotourism packages or energy-efficient consulting services, provided an environmental claim is being made about them. The core principle is transparency and accuracy in communicating environmental attributes to the public. Question 10. A manufacturer of industrial-grade lubricants supplying to fleet management companies makes a self-declared environmental claim on its product data sheets stating significantly reduced volatile organic compound (VOC) emissions compared to industry benchmarks. According to ISO 14021, 1999 principles for Type Roman II environmental labeling, what is the primary requirement for this claim to be considered compliant when communicated in a business-to-business context? Option A. The business customer is responsible for verifying the accuracy of the VOC emission reduction claim through their own independent testing upon receipt of the product. Option B. The claim is acceptable as it is a comparative statement that highlights a general environmental benefit without requiring precise quantification. Option C. The manufacturer must possess specific, quantifiable data and testing methodologies that substantiate the reduction in VOC emissions relative to a clearly defined and relevant industry benchmark. Option D. The manufacturer should obtain a voluntary certification from an industry association to validate the reduced VOC emissions claim, even if not explicitly required by ISO 14021. The correct answer is C. The manufacturer must possess specific, quantifiable data and testing methodologies that substantiate the reduction in VOC emissions relative to a clearly defined and relevant industry benchmark. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically in the context of Type Roman II environmental labeling, emphasizes the importance of self-declared environmental claims being accurate, verifiable, and not misleading. When a manufacturer of industrial cleaning solvents makes a claim about their product's biodegradability to a business customer, the standard requires that this claim be substantiated. This means the manufacturer must possess documented evidence, such as test reports from accredited laboratories conducted according to recognized international standards, e.g., OECD guidelines for biodegradability testing, to support the biodegradability assertion. The claim must also be specific and avoid vague or generalized statements. For instance, claiming environmentally friendly without qualification is insufficient. Instead, a claim like biodegrades to over 90% within 28 days under aerobic conditions, OECD 301b, provides a clear, measurable, and verifiable environmental attribute. The standard also mandates that such claims should not imply a certification or endorsement by a third party unless such a certification actually exists, which is characteristic of Type I labeling. Therefore, the core principle for a business-to-business communication under ISO 14021 is the provision of verifiable, specific, and substantiated environmental information that aids the business customer in making informed purchasing decisions without creating a false impression of environmental performance. Question 11. Consider a scenario where a manufacturer of cleaning products labels their new all-purpose cleaner with the statement, "contains naturally derived ingredients." Further investigation reveals that while the primary active cleaning agents are indeed derived from natural sources, the product also contains a significant percentage of synthetic preservatives and emulsifiers, which are essential for product stability and efficacy, but are not naturally derived. The manufacturer asserts that the claim is accurate because the active cleaning components are natural. Under the principles of ISO 14021, 1999, which of the following best describes why this claim might be considered misleading? Option A. The claim is misleading because the term naturally derived is not a recognized certification mark or eco-label under ISO 14021 and therefore cannot be used to describe product attributes. Option B. The claim is misleading because it implies the entire product composition is naturally derived, when in fact significant synthetic components are present, thereby failing to provide a complete and accurate representation of the product's environmental attributes. Option C. The claim is misleading because naturally derived ingredients are not necessarily more environmentally friendly than synthetic ones, and the standard prohibits claims based on unsubstantiated environmental benefits. Option D. The claim is misleading because the manufacturer failed to provide a specific percentage of naturally derived ingredients, which is a mandatory disclosure requirement for all self-declared environmental claims. The correct answer is B. The claim is misleading because it implies the entire product composition is naturally derived, when in fact significant synthetic components are present, thereby failing to provide a complete and accurate representation of the product's environmental attributes. Explanation: the core principle of ISO 14021, 1999 regarding self-declared environmental claims is to prevent misleading or deceptive statements. This standard, which falls under Type Roman II environmental labeling, mandates that any environmental claim made by a manufacturer, importer, distributor, or retailer must be accurate, verifiable, and not likely to mislead the consumer. Misleading claims can arise from vagueness, exaggeration, or the omission of crucial information. For instance, a claim like eco-friendly without substantiation or specific context could be considered misleading. The standard emphasizes that claims should be specific, supported by readily available evidence, and presented in a manner that allows consumers to make informed decisions. Regulatory bodies, such as the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, in the United States with its Green Guides, often align with these principles, requiring claims to be specific and substantiated. The avoidance of misleading claims is paramount to maintaining consumer trust and ensuring fair competition within the market. Therefore, a claim that is technically true but presented in a way that suggests a broader or more significant environmental benefit than actually exists would violate the spirit and letter of ISO 14021. Question 12. A company manufacturing biodegradable cleaning agents introduces a new product line. Their marketing materials prominently feature the phrase "earth-friendly formulation," accompanied by a graphic depicting a green leaf. While the product does biodegrade under specific industrial composting conditions, it does not readily break down in typical household waste disposal environments. Furthermore, the earth-friendly formulation claim is not substantiated by any third-party certification or detailed scientific data provided to consumers. Considering the foundational principles of ISO 14021, 1999, for Type Roman II environmental labeling, what is the primary deficiency in this company's self-declared environmental claim? Option A. The use of a green leaf graphic is a violation of specific color palette guidelines mandated for environmental labeling. Option B. The company failed to obtain an ISO 14001 certification before making any environmental claims. Option C. The claim lacks specificity and verifiability, potentially misleading consumers about the product's actual environmental performance in common disposal scenarios. Option D. The term biodegradable is inherently subjective and cannot be used in any environmental labeling context under ISO 14021, 1999. Correct answer is C. The claim lacks specificity and verifiability, potentially misleading consumers about the product's actual environmental performance in common disposal scenarios. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, under its Type Roman II environmental labeling, emphasizes the principle of accuracy and truthfulness in self-declared environmental claims. This means that any claim made by a manufacturer, importer, distributor, or retailer regarding the environmental attributes of a product or service must be verifiable and not misleading. The standard outlines that claims should be based on sound scientific evidence and methodologies that are recognized and accepted. Furthermore, the claims must be presented in a way that is clear, unambiguous, and easily understandable to the consumer. This includes avoiding vague terms or exaggerations that could lead to misinterpretation. The standard also addresses the need for substantiation, meaning that the entity making the claim must be able to provide documentation or evidence to support its assertions if requested by regulatory bodies or consumers. This principle is crucial for maintaining consumer trust and preventing greenwashing, where environmental benefits are overstated or fabricated. The intent is to empower consumers to make informed purchasing decisions based on genuine environmental performance. Question 13. Consider a scenario where a chemical manufacturing company, Viridian Synthetics, based in a jurisdiction with stringent regulations on the release of volatile organic compounds, VOC, into the atmosphere, introduces a new line of industrial coatings. Viridian Synthetics prominently labels these coatings with a Type Roman II environmental claim stating ultra-low VOC emissions. However, internal testing, conducted to meet a separate regulatory requirement for emission reporting, reveals that while the coatings meet the company's internal definition of ultra-low, they actually exceed the legally permissible limits for VOC emissions as defined by the National Environmental Protection Agency's mandates for such products. Under the framework of ISO 14021, 1999, what is the primary implication of this discrepancy for the validity of Viridian Synthetics' ultra-low VOC emissions self-declared claim? Option A. The self-declared claim is valid because the company has conducted internal testing, regardless of whether it meets external legal requirements. Option B. The self-declared claim is still valid as long as the company intends to reduce VOC emissions in future product iterations. Option C. The self-declared claim is fundamentally invalid and misleading because it is not substantiated by compliance with legally mandated environmental standards for VOC emissions. Option D. The self-declared claim is considered valid under ISO 14021, 1999, as Type Roman II claims are voluntary and do not require adherence to external legislation. The correct answer is C. The self-declared claim is fundamentally invalid and misleading because it is not substantiated by compliance with legally mandated environmental standards for VOC emissions. Explanation: the core principle of ISO 14021, 1999, regarding self-declared environmental claims, particularly concerning compliance with relevant legislation, is that such claims must be verifiable and not misleading. When a manufacturer makes an environmental claim, such as a product being biodegradable or recycled content, they are implicitly asserting that this claim is substantiated by evidence and aligns with applicable national and international environmental regulations. For instance, if a product is marketed as compostable, it must meet the specific criteria defined by relevant composting standards and regulations in the target markets. Failure to comply with these underlying legal frameworks means the self-declared claim itself is not only inaccurate, but also potentially illegal. ISO 14021, 1999 emphasizes that Type Roman II labels are voluntary and self-made. But this voluntariness does not exempt them from the requirement of truthfulness and accuracy, which are underpinned by existing legal obligations. Therefore, a claim that is legally non-compliant is fundamentally at odds with the spirit and letter of ISO 14021, 1999, as it creates a false impression of environmental benefit that is not supported by the product's actual adherence to environmental law. This means that the validity of the self-declared claim is directly tied to the product's legal standing concerning its environmental attributes. Question 14. Consider a manufacturer of biodegradable packaging materials that declares their new product line offers enhanced environmental benefits. To comply with the principles of ISO 14021, 1999 regarding self-declared environmental claims, what is the most critical element required to substantiate this assertion of enhanced environmental benefits as an environmental improvement? Option A. A marketing campaign highlighting the product's recyclability. Option B. A qualitative description of the product's positive impact on ecosystems. Option C. A general statement indicating the product is made from renewable resources. Option D. A clearly defined and verifiable reference point against which the new product line's environmental performance is compared. The correct answer is D. A clearly defined and verifiable reference point against which the new product line's environmental performance is compared. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999 defines environmental improvement as a positive change in the environmental status of a product or service in relation to a reference point. This reference point is crucial for substantiating any self-declared environmental claim. Without a clearly defined and verifiable reference point, a claim of improvement lacks objective grounding and could be misleading. For instance, claiming a product is more environmentally friendly is vague. However, if the claim specifies uses 20% less water during operation compared to the previous model, Model X, manufactured in 2020, it establishes a clear reference point, Model X, 2020, and a quantifiable improvement, 20% less water. This aligns with the standard's emphasis on transparency and the need for claims to be substantiated by evidence that allows for comparison. The reference point could be a previous version of the same product, a similar product from a competitor, if verifiable and documented, or a generally accepted benchmark for a particular product category at a specific time. The key is that the reference point must be identifiable and its environmental performance data accessible or documented to support the claimed improvement. This ensures that consumers can understand the basis of the claim and assess its validity. Question 15. A manufacturer of biodegradable packaging materials is developing a new product line. They are sourcing their primary raw material from a facility that processes discarded plastic bottles collected from municipal recycling programs. However, the processing facility also utilizes residual plastic material that was rejected during the initial extrusion phase of a separate, unrelated plastic products manufacturing before that product was ever packaged or sold to consumers. According to the principles of ISO 14021, 1999 concerning self-declared environmental claims, how should the recycled content of this packaging material be accurately characterized if the rejected plastic material constitutes 30% of the total recycled input and the collected plastic bottles constitute the remaining 70%? Option A, 30% post-consumer recycled content and 70% pre-consumer recycled content. Option B, 100% post-consumer recycled content, as the origin of the rejected material is irrelevant to the final product's consumer-facing claim. Option C, 100% pre-consumer recycled content, as the inclusion of any manufacturing byproduct negates the post-consumer designation. Option D, 70% post-consumer recycled content and 30% pre-consumer recycled content. Correct answer is D, 70% post-consumer recycled content and 30% pre-consumer recycled content. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999 defines pre-consumer recycled content as material recovered from a manufacturing process that has not yet entered the consumer market. This includes byproducts, overruns, or rejected products from the manufacturing of a product. Post-consumer recycled content, conversely, refers to material that has been used by consumers and then re-entered the recycling system for reprocessing. For example, if a paper mill uses scrap paper generated from its own printing operations before the paper is sold to customers, that would be considered pre-consumer recycled content. If that same paper mill then uses recycled paper collected from offices and households, that would be post-consumer recycled content. The distinction is crucial for environmental claims because it clarifies the origin of the recycled material and its impact on resource consumption and waste generation. The standard emphasizes that claims must be substantiated and not misleading. Therefore, a product claiming to contain recycled content must accurately specify whether it is pre-consumer or post-consumer, or both, and the percentage of each. Misrepresenting these categories can lead to misleading claims under the principles of ISO 14021. Question 16. A manufacturer of a new line of domestic water filtration systems wishes to make a claim of significantly reduced environmental impact during use phase, based on lower energy consumption compared to traditional filtration methods. To substantiate this claim under ISO 14021, 1999, which of the following approaches to assessing and verifying the environmental attribute would be most appropriate and compliant with the standard's requirements for self-declared environmental claims? Option A, utilizing a theoretical calculation of energy savings based on hypothetical usage patterns that have not been validated through real-world testing or independent observation. Option B, relying on anecdotal evidence from early adopters regarding perceived lower electricity bills and stating the claim without specific quantitative data or independent verification. Option C, conducting a comparative life cycle assessment, LCA, focusing on the use phase energy consumption, benchmarked against a representative average of existing filtration technologies, and ensuring the assessment methodology aligns with ISO 14040 series principles. Option D, presenting a single energy efficiency rating obtained from a voluntary industry certification program that does not require comparative analysis or life cycle considerations. Correct answer is C. Conducting a comparative life cycle assessment, LCA, focusing on the use phase energy consumption, benchmarked against a representative average of existing filtration technologies, and ensuring the assessment methodology aligns with ISO 14040 series principles. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically Section 7. 2. 1. Mandates that self-declared environmental claims must be based on appropriate methodologies for assessment. This means that the data and methods used to support a claim must be scientifically sound, verifiable, and representative of the product's entire life cycle or the specific attribute being claimed. For a claim regarding reduced water consumption, an appropriate methodology would involve a quantitative assessment of water usage across relevant stages of the product's life cycle, such as manufacturing, use, and disposal. This assessment should adhere to recognized international standards or national regulations for environmental performance evaluation, like those outlined by the International Organization for Standardization (ISO) or specific industry bodies. The methodology must also ensure that the comparison, if made, is fair and relevant, using a consistent baseline. For instance, if a washing machine is claimed to use less water, the assessment would compare its water consumption per cycle against a defined standard appliance or a previous model, using standardized testing protocols to ensure comparability and accuracy. The claim must be substantiated by this robust, data-driven assessment, ensuring it is not misleading to consumers. The principle is to provide a verifiable basis for the environmental attribute being communicated. Question 17. Consider a manufacturer of biodegradable cleaning products that initially declared their packaging as fully recyclable based on prevailing local recycling infrastructure at the time of the claim's inception. Several years later, due to changes in the local waste management system and the discontinuation of a specific recycling stream for that type of plastic, the packaging is no longer widely accepted by municipal recycling facilities. According to the principles of ISO 14021, 1999, regarding the currency and accuracy of self-declared environmental claims, what is the most appropriate course of action for the manufacturer to maintain compliance and ethical marketing practices? Option A. Issue a public statement clarifying the change in recycling infrastructure without altering the existing packaging or marketing materials that bear the fully recyclable claim. Option B. Immediately cease using the fully recyclable claim on the packaging and update all related marketing materials to accurately reflect the current recyclability status, potentially noting the specific limitations or changes in local infrastructure. Option C. Conduct an internal audit to determine if any minor adjustments to the product's formulation could indirectly affect the packaging's recyclability, rather than changing the claim itself. Option D. Continue using the fully recyclable claim, assuming that the original intent of the claim remains valid and that consumers understand that recyclability can be context-dependent. Correct answer is B. Immediately cease using the fully recyclable claim on the packaging and update all related marketing materials to accurately reflect the current recyclability status, potentially noting the specific limitations or changes in local infrastructure. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically in its clauses concerning the review and updating of self-declared environmental claims, emphasizes the dynamic nature of environmental performance and the need for claims to remain accurate and relevant. The standard requires that self-declared environmental claims be reviewed periodically to ensure they continue to reflect the actual environmental attributes of the product or service. This review process is crucial for maintaining the credibility of the claim and complying with the underlying principles of transparency and accuracy in environmental marketing. Factors that necessitate such a review include changes in the product's life cycle, updates in scientific understanding of environmental impacts, modifications in manufacturing processes, or the introduction of new regulations that affect the claim's validity. The standard does not mandate a specific frequency for review, but rather links it to significant changes or a reasonable period of time. implying that the organization making the claim must establish its own review cycle based on these triggers. This proactive approach prevents outdated or misleading information from being presented to consumers, thereby upholding the integrity of Type Roman II environmental labeling. The core principle is that a self-declared claim is a commitment that requires ongoing validation. Question 18. A company producing reusable beverage containers is developing marketing material that highlights their product's durability and reduced waste generation. They are considering a claim stating, significantly less waste than single-use alternatives. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the general principles of environmental claims as stipulated in ISO 14021, 1999, for Type Roman II environmental labeling, ensuring accuracy and preventing misleading information? Option A. Providing a clear and specific quantification of waste reduction, supported by a documented life cycle assessment comparing the reusable container to a defined average single-use alternative, with this supporting data readily available upon consumer inquiry. Option B. Emphasizing the recyclability of the container material at the end of its life, even if the primary environmental benefit highlighted is waste reduction during use, to offer a broader environmental appeal. Option C. Using the broad statement, significantly less waste than single-use alternatives, as it is a common and easily understood consumer benefit, implying a general environmental advantage without needing precise data. Option D. Focusing the claim on the reusability aspect alone, without directly comparing it to single-use items, to avoid potential disputes over the definition of significantly less waste. The correct answer is A. Providing a clear and specific quantification of waste reduction, supported by a documented life cycle assessment comparing the reusable container to a defined average single-use alternative, with this supporting data readily available upon consumer inquiry. Explanation. The fundamental principle guiding self-declared environmental claims under ISO 14021, 1999, is that such claims must be accurate, verifiable, and not misleading. This standard, which falls under Type Roman II environmental labeling, emphasizes the responsibility of the manufacturer, importer, distributor, or retailer making the claim. Specifically, the claims should be based on scientifically sound methodologies and data that can be substantiated upon request. The principle of truthfulness and accuracy is paramount, meaning that the claim must reflect the actual environmental attributes or benefits of the product or service. Furthermore, the claim should be specific enough to be meaningful to the consumer and should not overstate or exaggerate the environmental performance. This involves ensuring that the claim is relevant to the product's life cycle and does not divert attention from other potentially significant environmental impacts. The standard also mandates that claims should be clear and unambiguous, avoiding vague or general statements that could lead to misinterpretation. For instance, a claim about being eco-friendly without further qualification or substantiation would likely violate these principles. The focus is on providing consumers with reliable information to make informed purchasing decisions, thereby promoting environmentally responsible consumption. The standard also implicitly addresses the need for consistency with other environmental regulations and standards. Question 19. Considering the framework established by ISO 14021, 1999 for self-declared environmental claims, what constitutes the fundamental unit that can be the subject of an environmental claim under this standard? Option A. Only a manufactured item that has undergone a production process. Option B. A tangible good or an intangible service offered for market satisfaction. Option C. A specific environmental impact reduction achieved through process optimization. Option D. A company's entire operational infrastructure and supply chain. The correct answer is B. A tangible good or an intangible service offered for market satisfaction. Explanation. ISO 14021, 1999 defines various terms related to environmental claims. A product in the context of this standard refers to any good or service that can be offered to a market to satisfy a want or need. This encompasses not only tangible items, but also intangible services. The term environmental claim itself is defined as a statement, symbol, or action that communicates an environmental attribute of a product, process, or organization, or a claim about the environmental performance of a product, process, or organization. The standard emphasizes that such claims must be accurate, verifiable, and not misleading. It also distinguishes Type II environmental labeling from Type I eco-labeling and Type III environmental declarations by focusing on self-declared claims made by the manufacturer, importer, distributor, or retailer. The core principle is transparency and substantiation of the environmental attributes communicated to consumers. Question 20. A manufacturer of portable electronic devices is developing a new marketing campaign for their latest model, highlighting its extended battery lifespan, reducing the need for frequent replacements and thus lowering waste. According to the principles of ISO 14021-1999 concerning Type II environmental labeling, what is the most crucial consideration for substantiating this specific claim about reduced waste due to longer battery life? Option A. Ensuring that the manufacturing process of the batteries themselves does not introduce significant environmental burdens that outweigh the benefit of reduced replacement frequency. Option B. Quantifying the reduction in waste solely based on the number of batteries not discarded over a defined period, without considering the energy used in charging. Option C. Providing a clear and prominent disclaimer stating that the claim pertains only to the product's end-of-life phase and not its overall environmental impact. Option D. Focusing exclusively on the recyclability of the device's casing and packaging, as this is a more tangible aspect of waste reduction for consumers. Correct answer is A. Ensuring that the manufacturing process of the batteries themselves does not introduce significant environmental burdens that outweigh the benefit of reduced replacement frequency. Explanation. The core principle of ISO 14021-1999 regarding self-declared environmental claims, particularly concerning the product life cycle, is that claims must be substantiated and verifiable. When a company makes a claim about a product's environmental attribute, such as reduced energy consumption during use, the standard mandates that this claim be supported by evidence. This evidence should ideally consider the entire life cycle of the product to ensure the claim is holistic and not misleading. For instance, if a product claims to be eco-friendly due to its recycled packaging, the claim should not overlook significant environmental impacts in manufacturing or disposal. The standard emphasizes that claims should not overstate environmental benefits or imply that the product is environmentally superior to all others. Therefore, a claim about a specific life cycle stage, like reduced energy consumption during use, must be demonstrably true and supported by data that accounts for the relevant impacts within that stage, without neglecting other significant life cycle considerations that could undermine the overall environmental performance or the validity of the specific claim. This involves a rigorous assessment of the data underpinning the claim, ensuring it is accurate, relevant, and not presented in a way that could deceive the consumer about the product's overall environmental profile. The focus is on transparency and accuracy in communicating environmental attributes. Preventing greenwashing. Question 21. Consider a manufacturer of high-end audio equipment that is developing a new amplifier. They intend to label it with a self-declared environmental claim of extended operational longevity, citing the use of premium-grade heat-resistant capacitors and a robust internal cooling system. According to the principles outlined in ISO 14021-1999 for Type II environmental labeling, what is the primary requirement for substantiating such a claim to ensure it is not misleading? Option A. The manufacturer can rely on the reputation of the component suppliers for producing durable parts as sufficient evidence for the environmental claim. Option B. The manufacturer should simply state that the product is designed for a longer lifespan without providing any specific details or supporting evidence, as this is a common industry practice. Option C. The manufacturer should include a disclaimer on the packaging stating that extended operational longevity is a subjective assessment based on design choices rather than empirical testing. Option D. The manufacturer must provide verifiable data, such as component lifespan testing under simulated operating conditions, demonstrating a statistically significant increase in operational life compared to comparable products in the market. The correct answer is D. The manufacturer must provide verifiable data, such as component lifespan testing under simulated operating conditions, demonstrating a statistically significant increase in operational life compared to comparable products in the market. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically in its guidance for Type Roman II environmental labeling, mandates that self-declared environmental claims must be accurate, verifiable, and not misleading. When a claim relates to the extended product life, such as durability or repairability, the standard requires that the claim be substantiated with objective evidence. This evidence should demonstrate the actual extended lifespan or the factors contributing to it in a manner that is understandable to the consumer. For instance, if a product is claimed to be built to last, the manufacturer must possess data or test results that support this assertion, perhaps related to material resilience, component lifespan under specified usage conditions, or a proven track record of longevity compared to industry averages. The standard emphasizes that the claim should not overstate the environmental benefit or create a false impression of superior eco-friendliness. The focus is on transparency and providing consumers with reliable information to make informed purchasing decisions, aligning with the principles of responsible environmental communication. This principle is further reinforced by broader consumer protection regulations that prohibit deceptive advertising practices. Question 22. A company manufacturing biodegradable garden furniture intends to label its products with the claim "significantly reduces plastic waste." To substantiate this claim under ISO 14021, 1999, what is the most critical aspect of their data gathering process? Option A. Documenting the precise percentage of petroleum-based plastics eliminated compared to conventional furniture manufacturing processes. Option B. Gathering consumer testimonials that express satisfaction with the perceived reduction in environmental impact. Option C. Establishing a verifiable life cycle assessment that quantifies the reduction in plastic waste from raw material extraction to end-of-life disposal. Option D. Obtaining third-party certification for the biodegradability of the furniture's primary components. The correct answer is D. Obtaining third-party certification for the biodegradability of the furniture's primary components. Explanation: the core principle of ISO 14021, 1999 regarding self-declared environmental claims, particularly concerning the gathering of data to support these claims, emphasizes the need for accuracy, verifiability, and substantiation. When a manufacturer makes a claim such as "made with recycled content," the standard mandates that the data used to support this assertion must be reliable and traceable. This involves establishing a clear methodology for data collection, ensuring that the data accurately reflects the product's life cycle stages relevant to the claim, and that it can be independently verified if necessary. For instance, to support a claim about recycled content, a manufacturer would need to gather documentation from their suppliers regarding the origin and quantity of recycled materials used. This documentation could include supplier certifications, purchase records, and internal tracking systems. The data must be sufficient to demonstrate the validity of the claim under normal use conditions, and, where applicable, consider the entire product lifecycle. Furthermore, the standard implicitly requires that the data collection process itself is robust and free from bias, ensuring that the claim is not misleading. This aligns with the broader goal of Type Roman II labeling to provide consumers with accurate environmental information without the formal third-party verification required for Type I or Type Roman III labels. The focus is on the manufacturer's responsibility to ensure their claims are truthful and can be substantiated, thereby building consumer trust and preventing greenwashing. The relevant legislative context often includes consumer protection laws and advertising standards that prohibit deceptive practices, making the substantiation of environmental claims a legal as well as an ethical requirement. Question 23. Consider a manufacturer of biodegradable garden hoses. They wish to make an environmental claim stating "made with recycled materials," based on the inclusion of 5% recycled plastic in the hose's outer casing, while the inner lining and connectors are made from virgin petroleum-based polymers. The manufacturing process itself is energy-intensive, and the product's primary environmental impact during its use phase is water consumption. Under the principles of ISO 14021, 1999, which of the following statements best evaluates the relevance of this specific claim? Option A. The claim is highly relevant because any inclusion of recycled content regardless of quantity, inherently improves the environmental profile of the product according to established green marketing guidelines. Option B. The claim is potentially misleading as the proportion of recycled material is minor and does not represent a significant environmental benefit relative to the product's overall life cycle impacts, particularly water usage and virgin material in critical components. Option C. The claim is relevant as long as the recycled material is certified by an accredited third party, ensuring its environmental integrity and contribution to resource conservation. Option D. The claim is relevant because the product is biodegradable, and the use of recycled content in any part of the product supports the overall message of environmental responsibility. The correct answer is B. The claim is potentially misleading as the proportion of recycled material is minor and does not represent a significant environmental benefit relative to the product's overall life cycle impacts, particularly water usage and virgin material in critical components. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically Clause 7. 2. 1. Mandates that self-declared environmental claims must be relevant to the product or service, and to the aspects of the product or service that are significant from an environmental perspective. This means that a claim should not mislead consumers by focusing on minor or irrelevant environmental attributes. For instance, a claim about the recyclability of a product's packaging is relevant if the packaging constitutes a significant portion of the product's overall environmental impact related to waste, or if the recyclability is a key feature being highlighted. Conversely, claiming a product is eco-friendly solely because its manufacturing facility uses energy-efficient lighting would likely be considered irrelevant if the product's primary environmental impact stems from its material composition or transportation, and the lighting efficiency is a negligible factor in the overall life cycle assessment. The principle is to ensure that the environmental information provided is meaningful and directly relates to the environmental performance of the product or service in a way that a consumer can understand and act upon. This prevents greenwashing by ensuring claims are substantive and not merely superficial or misleading. Question 24. Considering the principles outlined in ISO 14021, 1999 regarding Type Roman II environmental labeling, what inherent characteristic of self-declared claims presents the most significant challenge for ensuring objective comparability and preventing potential consumer misinterpretation, even when claims are factually accurate according to the claimant's internal assessment? Option A. The prohibition of comparative environmental claims unless they are substantiated by a certified ISO 14040 compliant eco-profile. Option B. The absence of a mandatory, standardized methodology for quantifying and comparing specific environmental attributes across different product categories. Option C. The requirement for all self-declared claims to be accompanied by a detailed life cycle assessment, LCA, report publicly available. Option D. The reliance on government regulatory bodies to conduct independent audits of all self-declared environmental claims prior to market release. Correct answer is B. The absence of a mandatory, standardized methodology for quantifying and comparing specific environmental attributes across different product categories. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, concerning self-declared environmental claims, Type Roman II environmental labeling, emphasizes the importance of accuracy and substantiation for any environmental claims made by manufacturers, importers, or distributors. A key limitation inherent in self-declared claims, as distinct from third-party verified labels, Type I, or eco-profiles Type Roman III, is the potential for ambiguity and the reliance on the claimant's own interpretation of environmental performance. The standard mandates that claims must be accurate, verifiable, and not misleading, but it does not prescribe a universal methodology for quantifying or comparing environmental attributes. This leaves room for subjective interpretation and the possibility of greenwashing if not rigorously applied. For instance, a claim like reduced environmental impact, without specific quantification or reference to a particular life cycle stage or environmental aspect, can be difficult for consumers to assess and compare. The standard's reliance on the claimant's internal verification processes, while permitted, represents a fundamental constraint on the level of independent assurance compared to Type I or Type Roman III systems. This inherent characteristic means that while ISO 14021 provides a framework for responsible self-declaration, its effectiveness in providing robust, universally comparable environmental information is inherently limited by the absence of mandatory third-party verification for the claim itself. The onus is on the claimant to ensure the claim is factually correct and can be substantiated upon request, but the standard itself does not mandate the specific means of this substantiation beyond general principles of accuracy and non-deception. Question 25. Consider a scenario where a manufacturer of biodegradable cleaning agents introduces a new product line. They label the packaging with the statement, "Our formula breaks down naturally in the environment." To comply with the principles of ISO 14021, 1999, regarding the accuracy and verifiability of self-declared environmental claims, what is the most critical action the manufacturer must undertake to substantiate this statement? Option A. Rely on consumer perception and anecdotal evidence from early adopters to support the claim, as widespread acceptance implies environmental benefit. Option B. Include a disclaimer on the packaging stating that natural breakdown is a general environmental concept and does not guarantee complete degradation in all circumstances. Option C. Provide readily accessible documentation, such as third-party laboratory test results or recognized scientific studies, confirming the rate and extent of the product's biodegradation under specified environmental conditions. Option D. Obtain a general eco-friendly certification from an unaccredited organization that focuses on marketing rather than rigorous scientific validation of specific environmental claims. The correct answer is C. Provide readily accessible documentation, such as third-party laboratory test results or recognized scientific studies, confirming the rate and extent of the product's biodegradation under specified environmental conditions. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically addressing Type Roman II environmental labeling, mandates that self-declared environmental claims must be accurate, verifiable, and substantiated. This standard emphasizes that such claims should not mislead consumers about the environmental characteristics of a product or service. The principle of verifiability means that there must be accessible evidence to support the claim. This evidence could include test results from accredited laboratories, life cycle assessment data, or certifications from recognized third-party bodies. The standard also requires that the claim be presented in a manner that is clear, unambiguous, and relevant to the consumer's purchasing decision. Furthermore, it prohibits vague or unsubstantiated statements. For instance, a claim like environmentally friendly, without further qualification or supporting data, would not meet the requirements. The underlying concept is to prevent greenwashing by ensuring that any environmental assertion made by a manufacturer or service provider is grounded in factual, demonstrable information that can be validated by an independent party if necessary. This supports informed consumer choice and fosters trust in environmental labeling schemes. Question 26. A manufacturer of home appliances introduces a new refrigerator, labeling it with a prominent EcoSmart Energy Saver mark. The accompanying descriptive text states, "This refrigerator uses significantly less energy than standard models." According to the principles outlined in ISO 14021, 1999, for Type Roman II environmental labeling, what is the primary requirement for the validity of this EcoSmart Energy Saver claim? Option A. The claim must be substantiated by objective data, verifiable through independent testing, or by reference to a recognized energy performance standard, demonstrating a quantifiable reduction in energy consumption compared to similar products. Option B. The claim is acceptable if it is presented alongside a visually appealing graphic that suggests environmental friendliness, even if specific data substantiating the energy savings is not readily available to the public. Option C. The claim is inherently valid as it reflects the manufacturer's internal assessment of the product's energy performance, assuming good faith in design. Option D. The claim is permissible as long as it is accompanied by a general disclaimer stating that energy savings may vary based on usage conditions, thereby shifting the burden of proof to the consumer. The correct answer is A. The claim must be substantiated by objective data, verifiable through independent testing, or by reference to a recognized energy performance standard, demonstrating a quantifiable reduction in energy consumption compared to similar products. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically addressing Type Roman II environmental labeling, mandates that self-declared environmental claims must be substantiated and verifiable. For energy-efficient products, this means that any claim of superior energy performance must be supported by objective data that aligns with recognized energy performance standards or methodologies. The standard emphasizes that such claims should not be misleading and should be based on relevant aspects of the product's life cycle. When a manufacturer claims a product is energy efficient, this implicitly suggests a comparison to similar products or to a baseline performance level. The substantiation requires providing evidence that demonstrates this efficiency, often through testing according to established protocols or by referencing official energy rating systems. Without a clear, verifiable basis, such a claim would contravene the principles of ISO 14021, which aims to prevent greenwashing and ensure consumer confidence in environmental declarations. The verification process is crucial for maintaining the integrity of self-declared labels. Question 27. Consider a manufacturer of biodegradable cleaning products making a claim that their product is compostable in 90 days under industrial composting conditions. According to ISO 14021, 1999, what is the most critical component of the substantiation documentation for this specific claim? Option A. A simple declaration from the company's R&D department stating that the product meets the claimed compostability timeframe based on internal preliminary observations. Option B. Detailed test reports from an accredited laboratory confirming the product's degradation rate and the conditions under which it was tested, along with clear identification of the composting standards applied. Option C. A marketing brochure outlining the environmental benefits of compostable products in general and highlighting the company's commitment to sustainability. Option D. A list of all raw materials used in the product's formulation, with a general statement that these materials are known to be compostable. The correct answer is B. Detailed test reports from an accredited laboratory confirming the product's degradation rate and the conditions under which it was tested, along with clear identification of the composting standards applied. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically Section 7.2.1, mandates that self-declared environmental claims must be substantiated. This substantiation process involves gathering and maintaining documentation that provides evidence for the accuracy and truthfulness of the claim. Such documentation should be readily available to interested parties upon request. The purpose is to ensure transparency and prevent misleading environmental marketing. Key elements of this substantiation documentation include detailed descriptions of the product or service, the specific environmental attribute being claimed, the methodology used to assess that attribute, e.g., life cycle assessment data, laboratory test results, statistical analysis, and the results of these assessments. For claims related to product performance or a specific environmental benefit, the documentation must clearly link the claimed attribute to the product's design, manufacturing process, or end-of-life characteristics. The documentation should be sufficient to allow an independent third party to verify the claim. This includes providing clear references to standards used, data sources, and any assumptions made during the assessment. The aim is to build consumer trust by demonstrating a robust and verifiable basis for the environmental claims being made, aligning with the principles of fair competition and consumer protection. Question 28. Consider the application of ISO 14021, 1999 to various market offerings. If a company makes a self-declared environmental claim regarding the biodegradability of a specialized industrial lubricant, and another company makes a similar claim about the recycled content of its printed marketing brochures, and a third entity claims its consulting service reduces client energy consumption, which of these scenarios is most directly and comprehensively addressed by the principles and scope of ISO 14021, 1999 regarding self-declared environmental claims? Option A. The consulting service is the only one covered, as ISO 14021, 1999 is intended for performance-based environmental claims related to operational efficiency rather than material composition. Option B. All three scenarios are directly and comprehensively addressed by ISO 14021, 1999, as the standard applies to any product or service with a self-declared environmental claim that can be substantiated. Option C. None of the scenarios are fully covered, as ISO 14021, 1999 is mainly concerned with product certifications and eco-labels, not self-declarations for services or specialized industrial products. Option D. Only the industrial lubricant and the printed brochures are covered, as ISO 14021, 1999 primarily focuses on tangible goods with measurable physical environmental attributes. The correct answer is B. All three scenarios are directly and comprehensively addressed by ISO 14021, 1999, as the standard applies to any product or service with a self-declared environmental claim that can be substantiated. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically in its scope and applicability, delineates that Type Roman II environmental self-declarations are intended for products and services where the environmental characteristics can be substantiated by the manufacturer, distributor, or importer. The standard emphasizes that these claims should be verifiable and not misleading to consumers. It explicitly states that the standard is applicable to all products and services that are the subject of self-declared environmental claims. However, it does not exclude specific categories of products or services based on their inherent environmental impact or complexity, as long as the claims made about them can be substantiated. The core principle is the accuracy and verifiability of the self-declaration itself, irrespective of whether the product is a raw material, a finished good, or a service. Therefore, a complex industrial chemical, a simple consumer good, or an intangible service all fall within the purview of ISO 14021 if a self-declared environmental claim is made about them. The standard's intent is to provide a framework for the integrity of such claims across the board, fostering transparency in environmental communication. Question 29. A manufacturer of biodegradable packaging materials is preparing to launch a new product line and intends to label it with a claim indicating its enhanced decomposition rate compared to conventional plastics. To ensure compliance with ISO 14021, 1999, regarding the accuracy and reliability of self-declared environmental claims, what is the most critical prerequisite for substantiating such a claim? Option A. A general declaration that the product is environmentally friendly without specifying particular attributes. Option B. A clear statement on the packaging that the claim is based on internal company research and development. Option C. A comparative analysis with a broad range of unrelated products to highlight a perceived environmental benefit. Option D. The availability of comprehensive, independently verifiable test results demonstrating the specific decomposition rate under defined environmental conditions. The correct answer is D. The availability of comprehensive, independently verifiable test results demonstrating the specific decomposition rate under defined environmental conditions. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically in the context of self-declared environmental claims, Type Roman II, mandates that any environmental information provided must be substantiated and verifiable. The standard emphasizes that claims should be accurate, not misleading, and based on reliable data. When a company makes a claim such as reduces waste by 20%, the underlying data supporting this assertion must be robust. This involves having a clear methodology for data collection, analysis, and validation. The data should be traceable, reproducible, and preferably subject to some form of independent review or audit to ensure credibility. The standard cautions against vague or unsubstantiated claims, requiring that the basis for any environmental assertion be readily available to interested parties. This ensures transparency and builds consumer trust, preventing greenwashing. Therefore, the most crucial element in substantiating an environmental claim under ISO 14021 is the existence of reliable, verifiable, and relevant data that directly supports the specific claim being made. Without this foundational data, the claim lacks integrity and does not meet the requirements of the standard. The concept of verifiable data encompasses the entire life cycle of the data, from its collection to its interpretation and presentation. Question 30. Consider a company that manufactures biodegradable cleaning agents They prominently label their product packaging with the statement, "Environmentally friendly breaks down naturally." This claim is not accompanied by any third-party certification or specific scientific data presented on the label itself. Under the framework of ISO 14021, 1999, for Type Roman II environmental labeling, what is the primary implication of this self-declared claim regarding its substantiation requirements? Option A. The company is only obligated to provide substantiation if specifically requested by a regulatory body or a consumer advocacy group. Option B. The company must possess readily available and verifiable documentation to support the biodegradability claim, demonstrating how and under what conditions the product breaks down naturally. Option C. The claim is inherently valid due to its common usage in the industry, requiring no further substantiation. Option D. The absence of a third-party certification automatically renders the claim non-compliant with ISO 14021, 1999. The correct answer is B. The company must possess readily available and verifiable documentation to support the biodegradability claim, demonstrating how and under what conditions the product breaks down naturally. Explanation: ISO 14021, 1999, specifically regarding Type Roman II environmental labels, emphasizes the voluntary nature of self-declared environmental claims made by manufacturers, distributors, retailers, or any party that can be identified in relation to the product or service. The core principle is that these claims must be accurate, verifiable, and not misleading. The standard outlines that such claims should be based on objective evidence and communicated in a manner that is clear and understandable to the consumer. A key aspect is the responsibility of the claimant to substantiate their claims. This involves having readily available information that supports the environmental attributes being communicated. For instance, if a product is claimed to be recyclable, the claimant must be able to demonstrate that the product or its components meet the criteria for recyclability in the relevant markets or jurisdictions. This substantiation is crucial to prevent greenwashing and ensure consumer trust. The standard also guides against vague or overly broad claims that cannot be definitively proven. It promotes specificity and clarity in the environmental information provided. The absence of a third-party certification does not inherently invalidate a Type Roman II claim, but it places a greater onus on the claimant to ensure the claim's accuracy and verifiability through their own documentation and processes.